Steel, remember the Zack Snyder film, in which it starts with essentially the end of Man of Steel. We see the end battle of Man of Steel from the perspective of Bruce Wayne on the ground, looking at it from the perspective of collateral damage. He sees one of his towers destroyed, and this sets up a rivalry between him and Superman. And the rest of the movie then moves towards an inevitable confrontation with both Batman and Superman, and, of course, their alter egos, played by Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill. Here's a clip.
What's your position on the Bat Vigilante in Gotham?
Daily Planet. Wait, do I own this one? Or is that the other guy?
Civil liberties are being trampled on in your city. Good people living in fear.
Don't believe everything you hear, son.
I've seen it, Mr. Wayne. He thinks he's above the law.
The Daily Planet criticizing those who think they're above the law is a little hypocritical, wouldn't you say? Considering every time your hero saves a cat out of a tree, you read a puff piece editorial about an alien who, if he wanted to, could burn the whole place down. There wouldn't be a damn thing we could do to stop it.
Most of the world doesn't share your opinion, Mr. Wayne.
Maybe it's the Gotham City in me, and we just have a bad history with freaks dressed like clowns.
Now, I have to say, I went into this wanting to like it, because I thought in the case of Man of Steel, there was two-thirds of an interesting film there that kind of fell apart in the last act, in which it became superheroes hitting each other. Weirdly enough, this, if anything, goes backwards and doesn't solve any of the problems of the original, despite starting with a sequence which appears to be addressing the problems of the original. There are many shortcomings. One of them is that the story is really incoherently told, flashing back, flashing forwards, dream sequences, hallucinations, attempting to introduce characters who are all going to be part of the expanded DC universe. A lot of it felt like a setup for another movie. At 2.5 hours, that's an awful lot of setting up. And it's weird because, considering that the story is basically not that complicated, they managed to complicate it enormously. Secondly, I think that Snyder manages to mistake murkiness for darkness. The Christopher Nolan Dark Knight movies, you know, really did have that sense of depth. This doesn't. And again, I think this also mistakes length for depth. Yes, it's very long, but it is all surface. There are a couple of interesting performances, but many of them just get lost in the general stodgy morass of what's going on. And it does do exactly what happened with Man of Steel, is that it leads towards a great big spectacular punch-up, which is far less interesting than it ought to be. Now, the real shame of this is that I want fans to get a movie that they deserve, because the fact of the matter is it's the fans that make these movies exist. This movie has to do incredibly well to break even, and it may well be that it does so. As you probably know, the reviews have not been kind to it. I did quite genuinely go in wanting to find stuff to like in it, and coming out feeling worn down, feeling exhausted, feeling that it had managed to make stodgy and lumpen something which really should be so much lighter on its feet.
Well, it's also sad, I mean, you referenced the Dark Knight there. I mean, it just shows that you can rework things imaginatively and provide a new kind of psychological depth to it that you didn't see before.
Except, weirdly, the psychological depth is the thing which is missing, because actually in the central conflict between Batman and Superman is never quite established. I mean, it's like a kind of basic misunderstanding that just kind of goes on for a really long time and doesn't seem to have any great heft, any great weight. There's a huge amount of people standing around pontificating about gods and monsters and day versus night and black versus blue. There's an awful lot of speechifying. There is an incredibly annoying performance by Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, which is...
Because I like Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, well, you remember him in The Social Network? Yeah, well, imagine that. Yeah, imagine that performance turned up to, 120 stupid. And basically, I mean, from the very, very first moment he started, I just thought, OK, is this meant to be threatening? Because actually it's really irritating. Jeremy Irons makes a very brief appearance as Alfred. You think that's great, then he's gone. And then he'll come back half an hour and then he's gone. And then there's an entire 40 minutes in which he's not there. And the problem with it is that for a huge production movie like this to be disappointing is always disappointing. When people think that film critics want to dislike movies, I don't. I want them to be better. Well, and this isn't better.
Tom Hiddleston is definitely flavour of the month, so all sorts of things. BBC, doing very well there, that series. I can't wait to see how it ends. And your best of the week is High Rise.
High Rise. And this has proved so divisive. I mean, people either love or hate High Rise.